This is Countdown to Economic Collapse, March 18th, 2012. I'm David John Sponheim, running for president under America's Third Party. Who are you? Are you an American? Because if you're an American, you must believe that America stands for something, right? Freedom, democracy, our republic, our Constitution. Well, all of that is being undermined by a group of elitists that are controlling your government. What are you going to do about it?
Enter America's Third Party, ATP for short. We're here to expose the inner workings of the Dow, currently at 13,232, and to determine if we are heading toward an economic collapse. Silver and gold are down by as much as 4% on Federal Reserve news that they will keep interest rates low and not add more money with quantitative easing 3. Wells Fargo's net worth is up on news its strategy is working, helping the customer and not investing in the volatile commercial lending industry. The positive job growth for February is short-lived. It's a result of the ARRA funds being spent out during this time period. The extended risks in the housing sector are emphasized by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's $7 trillion mortgage-backed securities, which do pose a problem. In a few minutes, you'll see how people are being fired over the truth regarding the mortgage industry, and you'll see how media hype is glossing over the real numbers that are propagated by this terrible downturned economy. And what the media doesn't realize is as the economy worsens, people are power, and we will take America back.
At America's Third Party, we have decided that we have a better way than the Democrats and Republicans. We've laid it on the table. We've addressed every issue that faces our country into the future in our platform. And we believe that what is happening in our country is our nation is turning into a monarchy. The very thing that we escaped from in England is returned again. Anyone with money can buy access to the media and to politics and control an election. Now, if you're as concerned as I am, you would want to do something about it, right? Well, I'm doing just that. I'm doing what any average American would do to fight to save my nation and to build our nation as opposed to letting it rot away and fall apart or fall into the hands of rich, totalitarian, fascist interests. Now, there are many people out there in this country that are doing the same thing I am. And many of them are working within the very government that we call corrupt. And these people are whistleblowers. And they are going out of their way to talk about the problems that are systemic risks in our economy that could very well degrade our ability to back up our debt, back up all of the derivatives that I've talked about are in danger. One such person is Lam Fang, who actually worked for the Congressional Budget Office until recently when she was fired because she exposed the truth.
This is coming from ZeroHedge.com. The story of a whistleblower at the Congressional Budget Office named Lam Pham, who actually shared her full story exposing the deep conflicts at the supposedly impartial Budget Office. Lam Pham actually got information from her boss, who worked at Morgan Stanley, another economist, PhD, who claimed, according to her, that the systemic risk in the mortgage industry still exists, that the $25 billion bailout that occurred doesn't in any way fix the problem with the robo-signing issues, that apparently she alleges supervisors stifled opinions that contradicted economic fixes endorsed by some on Wall Street, including her boss. And this is an interesting story because there's an $11 trillion mortgage acquisition by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that is underwritten by about $7 trillion in mortgage-backed securities. Well, they are at risk still because no one really knows who's receiving payments for these. The robo-signing problem still exists, and nothing ever is actually fixed, according to Ms. Pham. It is unclear how the recent state attorney's general agreement to a proposed yet unpublished term of the $25 billion robo-signing settlement would repair the chain of title issues that continue to mutate. Now, this story is even more compelling. She goes on to say that when she tried to send an email to her own house from her office the power was shut down in her building. And later, when she got back home, she noticed a car parked out in front of her house. They're putting a lot of pressure on this whistleblower who didn't really know that she was working for people that were working for the mortgage industry.
Now, she's not the only whistleblower that is speaking out. Greg Smith worked at Goldman Sachs and recently made comments that are very revealing about the internal workings of Goldman Sachs. Listen to what he had to say in his recent open letter to the press.
And from the Huffington Post, Greg Smith's Goldman Sachs resignation letter was vetted by the New York Times. Goldman Sachs executive director Greg Smith quit his job Wednesday in the most public way possible. In a blistering takedown of his now former employer, Smith wrote that the environment at Goldman Sachs is as toxic and destructive as I have ever seen it. Andy Rosenthal, the Times editorial page editor, told the Huffington Post in an email that Smith contacted us about writing the piece. In the letter, Smith accuses Goldman Sachs of putting its own financial interests ahead of those of its clients, and even singles out CEO Lloyd Blankfein and President Gary Cohn as responsible for losing hold of the firm's culture on their watch. Why I'm Leaving Goldman Sachs. Written by Greg Smith. Today is my last day at Goldman Sachs. After almost 12 years at the firm, first as a summer intern while at Stanford, then in New York for 10 years, and now in London, I believe I have worked here long enough to understand the trajectory of its culture, its people, and its identity. And I can honestly say that the environment now is as toxic and destructive as I have ever seen it. To put the problem in the simplest terms, the interests of the client continue to be sidelined in the way the firm operates and thinks about making money. Goldman Sachs is one of the world's largest, most important investment banks, and it is too integral to global finance to continue to act this way. The firm has veered so far from the place I joined right out of college that I can no longer, in good conscience, say that I can identify with what it stands for.
So if that wasn't enough, there are more whistleblowers coming out now. One is anonymously coming out for JP Morgan, who's talking about the dangers that happen when people are not investing for their clients, but rather for their own unscrupulous greed. Listen to this article.
This is from the economiccollapseblog.com. And here's a whistleblower who says things are happening at JP Morgan that will blow your mind. Rampant silver manipulation, rampant gold manipulation, rampant labor manipulation, hiding MF Global client assets. These are all happening at JP Morgan according to an open letter reportedly written by an anonymous employee of the firm. And the whistleblower also warns of a cascading credit event being triggered by the derivatives-related Greek government debt. Okay, unlike the Greg Smith at Goldman Sachs whistleblower case, this person has chosen to remain anonymous for now. There is something else that you may find strange. During month-end December, we were all told by our managers that this was going to be a dismal year in terms of earnings and that we should not expect any bonuses or pay raises. Then, come mid-late January, it is made known that everyone received a pay raise and or a bonus, which is interesting because just a few weeks ago, we were told that this was not likely and expected to be paid nothing in addition to base salary. Well, apparently, JP Morgan's getting a lot of money. January is right around the time we started increasing our short positions quite significantly again, and this most recent crash in gold and silver during Bernanke's speech on February 29th is of notable importance as we along with 4 other major institutions, orchestrated the violent $100 drop in gold and subsequent drops in silver.
So clearly there are people like myself who are speaking out about the country and about the dangers of these rich elitists as they try to control our future and turn our nation into a monarchy. I want our nation to be focused on giving people opportunity, a low-cost education, removing the aspect of Wall Street welfare, which seems to be going on all over the place, ending the tyranny of these mega Wall Street firms that are controlling the destiny of our economy, and most of all, ending the Fed and erasing the debt that is meaningless. That will put us back on a good, sure footing for the future. And I can tell you, if these banks aren't going to let loose of that money and invest in companies that hire Americans, they need to be called to task. They need to be called out. And Barack Obama has done nothing to change the nature of the SEC. The Security and Exchange Commission has the same people on it that Bush had. He's done nothing to change the essence of fairness in the political and economic environment. We see him using his power to get reelected. Folks, we've got a problem, And this president is potentially a dangerous president. I believe that our country needs to get back to its roots, away from a monarchy, back to good quality American-made products with American jobs and the future that is bright, clean, and environmentally friendly for our children. I'm David John Sponheim, and I support this message.
ATP, you and me.